Hi, everyone. Welcome and good afternoon, good evening, maybe good morning, depending on where you're tuning in from. Thank you so much for joining us virtually today. My name is Hayla Alawi, and on behalf of Atmosphere Press, I am so pleased to welcome you to today's live author reading, Dreamers and Seekers. We'll be hearing from Jessie E. Turner, reading from Moon in the Day Sky, Valley of Thunder, released on September 10th. Cammy Marble reading from Holidays in Trees, Christmastide, released September 17th, and Lee Allen Hill reading from 12 New Stories of Christmas, an anthology, released on September 26th. All three authors' books can be purchased both from online retailers and from select bookstores. And of course, the books can be ordered on Atmosphere Press's website. That's at atmospherepress.com/books. I'm also going to put some direct links in the chat for everybody so you can get straight to those books on our website. At the end of today's event, we'll also have time for audience questions. So during the readings, if you have a question for one or more of our authors, go ahead and type those in the chat and I'll make sure they get asked. Please do stay muted for the duration of the event, but you can also feel free to use the chat for any praise and comments. One last note is that we at Atmosphere Press appreciate your support today and always. If you have a manuscript of your own, we are always looking to read submissions, so submit your work today to books@atmospherepress.com. Again, thank you so much for tuning in and supporting Jessie, Cammy, and Lee today. Going to start off with our first reader, who is Jessie Turner. Jessie is a native of the beautiful mountains of Colorado. Her passion for world building was born out of her experiences in this idyllic environment. In college, Jessie pursued her interest in the behavioral sciences, but it wasn't until she started writing novels that she truly began to understand human behavior. By exploring characters in her own stories, Jessie was able to delve deeper into the complexities of human nature. When not writing, Jessie loves to teach antique skills. She's an award-winning creator of miniature historical dolls and a statewide first place winner for her tatted lace. Today, we'll be hearing Jessie read from Moon in the Day Sky, Valley of Thunder, in which Starsha is a dreamer hiding a big secret. She has been chosen to fulfill an ancient prophecy. In a world where female dreamers are destroyed, she must flee her home with her baby brother. With an army amassed against her and the powers of mutated magic threatening her destruction, Starsha must summon all her courage to claim the promised legacy and save her brother. Now let's welcome Jessie.
Thank you. I want to explain just a couple of things before we get started. Tryphosa is a mother dragon. Nebula is her baby daughter. And a yamacorn is an animal somewhat like a llama, but there are some differences. Just so you to know what's going on. The dragon dame fanned her massive wings, whipping nearby grass and leaves. Lifting Nebula, she put the hatchling in her pouch, then glared at Starsha. The young woman heard, not with her ears, but with the very core of her being. Stop calling her. It's dangerous. Someone's watching. Starsha treasured the time she spent with Panay, building up the fires at daybreak. One morning he asked her, "What do you remember about Mama?" Her perspective suddenly changed. Though he was accepted by the Ebony clan, he didn't have the same precious memories that sustained her. What could she say about their mother that would help let him catch a glimpse of who she was? She was like warm sunshine. Her smile came right from her heart and made everything light and happy. "Here, let me show you a game we used to play." Memories welled up inside her as she went through the motions. Clap 3 times, slap your knees, roll your arms, then we reach to the middle and clap each other's hands. "Now you do it with me." He brightened as he held up his hands. 1, 2, 3, slap, roll, clap. They went through several repetitions, each faster than the last. Panay laughed as he missed one of her hands on the final clap. Suddenly the door burst open and 3 strangers stepped inside. The intrusion startled and embarrassed Starsha. Not only were they caught in the middle of their game, it was Mama's game, not meant for anyone but Panay and her. The men stood covered with road dust, their black beards and hair tied back with leather laces. Their faces looked as though they had been chiseled from stone. As they entered, the stink of sweaty horses and body odor infested the room. One of them demanded in a growling voice, "Dorian, talk, now." Starsha glanced at Panay. He nodded and ran off to get the master. "Come in and sit down," she said, but they continued to stand by the door, looking around. When Master Dorian came, he greeted them in the same language. As they left the council hall, the guttural syllables followed after them. A short time later, Panay ran in with a huge armload of sticks. He dumped it in the wood box. In a rush of words, he shared his secret with Starsha. "The travelers are camped in the meadow behind the Yamacorn stables. There's a whole bunch of them, and they will be eating with us tonight. We'll have stories and songs. You should see the wooden pipes. I can't wait to hear them. I have to go now. They're letting me carry water to their horses. All of them have horses, Starsha, not just their leader. They must be rich." He darted out of the hall and nearly ran into the master's wife. Telsa fluttered around like a moth at a candle. She ran up the stairs and banged on the door. "Up, up," she called. "Come on, you lazy girls. We have to get ready for the feast." The troop that followed Telsa down the stairs looked so rumpled that Starsha could scarcely keep from giggling. Michaela's hair stood at odd angles. The other girls were crowned with knots and tangles. They all shivered in their night clothes, despite their hastily wrapped shawls and blankets. The picture of them stumbling in half asleep that morning kept Starsha in good humor most of the day. She anticipated hearing the stories and the music, but Telsa chose to keep her in the cookhouse, far from the feasting and merriment. Her only contact with people ended up being when Michaela and the others refilled platters and pitchers. They ignored Starsha for the most part and grumbled among themselves. "They're not very good storytellers. I can't understand a thing they say." Contrary to their complaining, the notes Starsha heard through the propped open door of the cookhouse thrilled her. "If only I could hear it better," she thought. She finally grabbed a basket of bread and hurried toward the council hall. She paused just outside the window. Heavenly notes floated toward her. Just as she touched the last latch of the door, Telsa burst through it. "What are you doing here?" she demanded. "I want to hear the music." "Well, it's over now. Get back to your duties." She grabbed the basket from Starsha, re-entered the hall, and slammed the door behind her. The music ended abruptly. Starsha walked away, confused. Why did she keep her from the celebration? Heavy-hearted, Starsha returned to the cookhouse. At one point, she heard a rowdy chant accompanied by mugs banging on the table. "Panay, Panay, Panay!" And she knew that her little brother was telling his story for the whole assembly. No one came that night to assist her with the cleanup. She kept to her scrubbing until very late and didn't bother to go up to her bed, but found a warm spot by the dwindling cook fire. Starsha slept soundly till the morning chill woke her. As she entered the council hall, a wave of resentment hit her. Michaela and the others hadn't finished their work, so the tables were still piled with dishes and uneaten food. She thought of them upstairs in their warm beds. They can tend their own fire, she thought. I'm not going up there. Panay usually kept the wood box full, but this morning there was not one stick of wood in it and no sign of Panay. Her annoyance suddenly turned to alarm. She ran to the men's sleeping area and banged on the door. "What is it?" a voice grumbled. "Panay, where's Panay?" A pause followed. "He's not here." "Where is she? Where is he?" she nearly shrieked. Soon hastily dressed, disheveled men emerged from the servants' quarters. "What's going on?" Master Dorian demanded as he pushed open the front door. "Panay didn't come to help me with the fire this morning. I'm worried about him." A quick search failed to reveal him, so Starsha raced to the meadow behind the Yamacorn stables. He said they let him water the horses. He must be there now. But he wasn't. Terror gripped Starsha as she stared at the deserted meadow. Voices of approaching villagers echoed against the emptiness of the meadow. They all stopped behind Starsha as though they had run into the same barricade of shock that had stopped her. Master Dorian's voice rose above the rest. Where are they? They've gone, and they've taken Panay with them, she cried. We have to go get him. What do you mean, we? The clan leader's voice had a hard edge. He's my brother. Master Dorian folded his arms across his chest. He is a member of this clan. You are going nowhere. But leave this to the men. Please let me go, she begged. Master Dorian glared at her. You know where he is? Then tell us. I... Desperately, she searched for something to say. No dream had come to her, no vision of his whereabouts, nothing. Even if it had, she could not admit it now. Cold fear gripped her. Female dreamers were hunted and killed. She would be of no use to Bidet, dead. I don't know, she whispered. You are useless. Pack enough supplies to last me 3 days. Then he turned to his men. Meet me back here in an hour with your gear. Anger and frustration drove Starsha as she followed Master Dorian's orders. As she stormed past the stable, she checked herself. Just because he's acting like a pile of dung doesn't mean I've got to step in it. The men will need water, and their animals could use a drink before they leave. She turned around and entered the stables, where she picked up 2 buckets and 2 skin bags. She connected the bags with a leather strap and slung them around her shoulders, and then she hurried to the spring and filled all 4 vessels. Struggling with the weight of her burden, she returned to the stables. As she entered, she saw Master Dorian lifting his saddle and laying it upon his horse. Perhaps she could convince him to let her go. Lowering her bucket, she approached him. He was alone now, not exposed to the expectations of the other men. It was certainly worth another attempt. She lifted the skin bags from her shoulders and hung them over a peg on the wall. Master Dorian, here is some water for your horse. She lifted one of the buckets and poured it into the trough. Would you please reconsider? He pulled the bucket from her grasp, sloshing water on the floor. You are not going with us. I told you to fetch my supplies. So much for not stepping in his dung. Anger steamed inside her. She turned her back on Master Dorian. At the smokehouse, she grabbed dried meat and stuffed it into a leather pack hanging by the door. She added roots and fruit, blankets, a tarp, and a tinderbox. Starsha carried the bundle to the meadow and secured it to Master Dorian's saddle. She noted the water skins she had filled, already in place. Several black yamacorns stood in the meadow. Men of the village loaded their rations onto their backs. When the provisions had been stowed, they marched off, leaving Starsha standing alone and silent in the meadow. Master Dorian's voice drifted back to her. Let's go find our dreamer. The statement sickened Starsha. She could lead them. She could show them where he was, just as soon as she had the dream. But they had no use for her gift, and the one person they would accept it from, Panay, was not there to tell them of dreams or visions. Oh, Panay, she grieved, how will you suffer for my deceit? What will you be expected to do because of my secrecy? You don't deserve this. I should have been the prisoner, not you. On the way back to the cookhouse, Starsha decided she would go and find Panay herself. The men of the village could look wherever they pleased, but with tonight's dream, she would learn where he truly was, and she would rescue him herself. First, she went to the Yamacorn stables and dug through a tackle box till she found a water skin. This one was worn at the top. It probably wouldn't hold a full measure of water. The good ones had already been taken, but this one would work well enough if she were careful. She made her way to the creek to fill it. As she knelt beside the stream, she heard a commotion. Rising to peek through the willows, she saw the village girls at the water's edge throwing rocks and sticks. Get out of here, Vicala shouted as she flung a stone. You'll not have the food of the ebony herd. Or the water, shouted another girl. Starsha's eye went to the object of their attack. On the far side of the stream, she saw a spotted yamacorn. Her heart went out to the poor creature, but she could ill afford to let herself be seen. Starsha walked around the head of the spring and entered the forest. She traveled for quite a distance until she knew the villagers could not hear her. Then she trilled the yamacorn call that Nana had taught her so many years ago. Soon the spotted creature appeared. Come here, I'll give you a drink. Starsha looked deeply into the eyes of the spotted animal. You and I are very much alike, misfits. She reached out to pat the long neck. Goodbye, my friend. Starsha hurried back to the village. She saw the other girls weeding in the herb garden and slipped past them. Upstairs in the council hall, she rolled and tied her bedding, and then she carried it to the cellar where she gathered vegetables and fruit. Her next stop would take her to the cookhouse for some dried meat, but the master's wife stood in the doorway with her fists planted on her hips. Where have you been? Telsa demanded. Starsha stammered and then recovered, was caring for the animals. Vicala said that you followed after a spotted yamacorn. I did. Her honesty jolted Telsa. I was just making sure it wouldn't come back. What's that for? Telsa jabbed a finger at Starsha's bedding. My brother has been kidnapped. Telsa threw her hands up in the air. This is foolishness. The men have already gone. What can you hope to accomplish? I will find him. How do you know? Her head cocked, a sneer hardened her face. Are you a dreamer? The sound of her accusation knifed into Starsha and twisted in her stomach. The memory of a mob avalanched upon her. Dreamer, dreamer, dreamer. Well? Telsa's question snatched Starsha back from the imprisonment of the memory. She gasped. Her head cleared. I have had no dream. I am just as ignorant as the village men, but this much I do know. Panay is my brother. I will find him. She pushed past the master's wife and headed to the cookhouse.
Thank you so much, Jessie. That was really quite an animated reading, which I always love when we can hear and really feel the dialogue and the stakes come out. So thank you so much for that introduction to the story. Reading next today is Cammy Marble. Cammy grew up on a farm and in the woods listening to what God and nature had to say. She currently lives on a 2-acre country property in Missouri with her husband, Ken, and their young granddaughter. A graduate of the University of Central Missouri, she has been a homeschooler and tutor for 20 years. She enjoys teaching, gardening, drawing, volunteering, and playing several musical instruments. The Holidays in Trees series came to her in a vivid nighttime dream. The creativity and humor in her artwork and writing is a reflection of her approach to life. Today, we'll be hearing from Holidays in Trees, Christmastide, where excitement is in the frosty air. Christmas is approaching the woodland creatures' town of Black Walnut Ridge Resort. How do they celebrate the season? Do they see the Christmas star or do they wait for Santa Claus? You can find out the answers to these questions and more when you visit the forest for a very merry Christmastide. So as Cammy is reading today, I'm going to be screen sharing the illustrations from the book, from this children's book, so you can really appreciate all the artwork as well. So just give me 1 second and I'll have that pulled up and then Cammy will begin her reading. All right, here we go. Whenever you're ready, Cammy.
Okay. And you can hear me?
All good.
Okay. Each book in the Holidays and Trees series starts with a little verse in the front. So I'll read the verse first and then I'll start the story. The verse is called The First Snow. Tiny, fluffy bits of ice. During Christmas, they are nice, falling gently through the air, dropping softly into your hair. Christmastide is our favorite holiday in our town of Black Walnut Ridge Resort. We make it last for 12 days. We share the first day of Christmastide with the whole town at May Apple Chapel. Then we celebrate family traditions in our homes. It is a very happy time as we celebrate the birth of the sun child. Usually by now there is a blanket of snow and it is cold. We stay indoors as much as possible. I am Chester Scamper. My wife's name is Autumn. Our kids' names are Scamp Jr., Whiskers, and Baby Violet. We are glad to see you again. For a few days, we are all busy making small gifts for our family and friends. The kids make little presents and snowflakes out of paper. The grown-ups make toys from wood or special goodies to eat. Autumn always makes sure our Christmas is filled with love and kindness. Before Christmas, Jay and Flappy Feathers bring in a supply of fragrant cedar boughs with pine cones, jolly holly, and pumpkin orange bittersweet from the ridge for anyone who wants to use it for decorating. We always decorate the cedar with the holly and the bittersweet to make our home look fancy and cheerful. Sometimes we add dried berries and acorns too. Whiskers and Scamp Jr. cut out pretty, glittery ornaments and put them around our home. Silvery, shimmery spider thread draped over the cedar is enchanting. Baby Violet giggles at all the sparkling pretties. After decorating, the kids like to gather outside with their friends and slide around on the hard-packed snow. They don't stay outdoors for too long. It is cold. Can you slide on your tail in the snow? As it gets closer to December 25th, Autumn and Mrs. Monk pack the quilts that she made to take to the children at Sunrise Mercy Hospital. All the children get a new quilt. The extra soft, fuzzy blankets are for the new babies. There is a set of sweet twins this year, born to Tommel and Raina Little. The babies already have their very own red hats and will bless our town with their Christmas birthday. Any child born at this time grows up to be one of our spiritual leaders. It will be a few days before the new littles have first names, as they'll have to wait until spring for their birthday trees to be planted. On Christmas Eve, our whole family sits around the fire with the candles glowing. We sing all sorts of Christmas carols. After we sing Silent Night, I pick up our well-worn Bible and read the Christmas story. Then it is off to our snuggy beds with light hearts and happy feelings. There seems to be a hush over the land. For us this night, there are whisperings of peace on earth and goodwill to all under heaven. On Christmas Day, we parents would like to sleep late, but we find two kids jumping on our bed with excitement. Oh, yes, it is Christmastide. Remember, we have made little gifts for each other. Some believe a story about Santa Claus leaving presents at their front door. Anyway, we have hidden our gifts all over the house. We have to find them like a treasure hunt. This is what we do. Number one, everyone gets a note that gives him directions about where to find his gift. Number two, but then instead of finding a gift, there's another note with instructions. Number three, we go on this way until the notes finally lead us to our gifts. Number four, then we sit in a circle and take turns opening the treasures we've made for each other. This is one of our family's gifting traditions. I hope you had fun learning about our family's Christmas. We hope you have a Merry Christmas too. Next time I see you, I'll tell you about an ice storm we had one year. See you soon.
Thank you so much, Cammy. I love that teaser for the ice storm up next, but for now, it's such a charming and wonderful story for this time of year, especially. So thank you so much for that reading.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Of course. Our final reader for today is Lee Allen Hill. Lee was a mediocre hippie folk singer when, in the early 70s, he heard the devil calling. Much to his shame, he became an advertising copywriter slash idea man slash creative director. 30 years later, Lee shed the world of commerce and renewed his hippie vows. He was born again. Since then, he has concentrated his efforts on writing entertaining short stories. He has several publishing credits, most notably a weekly slot at the late lamented Page and Spine Writers Showcase. Currently, Lee taps the keys anonymously somewhere in the wilds of Connecticut. His favorite colors include bourbon and pale ale. Today, we'll be hearing Lee read from 12 New Christmas Stories, an anthology, where Lee, along with his co authors, explore how Christmas is a time for family and traditions, the food we eat, the songs we sing, and the stories we share. Within the covers of this book reside real and fictional families, both familiar and unfamiliar. What they all have in common is the Christmas spirit in spades. We'll hear more now from Lee himself.
Hello. Am I visible to everyone?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. I can see you, Ayla, but I don't see me. That's okay. I know what I look like. Uh, I don't know how I'm going to top Jessie and Cammy, but I will do my best. And I do need to tell you that I represent four other authors, and they have chosen me to be their representation because they have no taste. Anyway, yeah, we're going to start with. I'm only going to read excerpts from my stories. You know, I don't think I could do justice to the stories of the other folks. And quite honestly, they write better than I do. Okay, we ready? Yeah, we're ready. This is a story called Jesus and Donkey, but don't worry about those names too much because they don't mean a lot. Okay. Jesus and his splotched dog Donkey walked the familiar path toward the town of Santa Lucia in New Mexico's high desert. Donkey wasn't his dog in so much as Jesus didn't raise him from a pup or pick him out at the pound. It was Donkey who did the picking, showing up unannounced and making himself at home. That made Jesus proud. It is well known that dogs, especially as Donkey, have very high standards when it comes to choosing a boy. Inez, Jessie's madre, did not understand the majesty of dogs and in, uh, wasn't overjoyed at Donkey's uninvited intrusion. But much to her credit, she didn't interfere, aware that matters between dogs and boys are not for mothers to question. Have you given any more thought about what I should get Mama for Christmas? The boy asked the dog. Donkey's gaping yawn and cockeyed smile reminded Jesus that for all a dog's sensitivities, they consider human issues quaint and trivial. He reached down to scratch the top of Donkey's head. Dogs have enough on their minds, eh, Donkey? The day was fine and unusually warm for late December. The Hayano nubby with scrub and garbed in barely differentiated muted tones coalesced under a turquoise-tinged sky. The air sagged heavy with a fragrance of sage and yucca, with the hints of pinon and conifer drifting down from the high forests. The mingled aromas, particularly the earthy sage, made his mouth water, hastening his decision. I will buy Mother a fine turkey for our Christmas feast, Donkey. Store-bought and naked, like Father used to bring home, the kind of turkey other Americans eat, plump and plucked. Jesus felt a tinge of envy for those other Americans who lived in magical places with names like Massachusetts and Philadelphia, places where it snowed, on neat little houses, on neat little streets every Christmas Eve, as if it was by law. This year, we will not make do with stringy sage hen, the boy thought. The snow will remain in the mountains, but otherwise, we will celebrate the birth of the sun with a fine feast, like the Americans on TV do. Jesus recounted the money from his jeans pocket. Still $7.37. Money he'd earned helping Senor Castillo harvest and string chilies from the Viejo's modest kitchen garden. The town of Santa Lucia occupied an unusually lush spot on the otherwise semi-arid llano. An underground stream bubbled up from the surface for several hundred yards, then disappeared again beneath the prickly crust of Mother Earth. It is said that the Spanish mission around which the town grew had been built by friars who had been hopelessly lost on the llano until being saved by these very same waters. The stream still flowed as it ever had, but the blood of those early Europeans had long since seeped into the ground, except for vestiges locked in the veins of the many generations who had come after. Jesus waved greetings to the townfolk while Donkey trotted, sniffing, from post to post, reading his messages, often raising a leg to reply. The bell that hung on the inside of the door to Mr. Haney's general store tinkled as Jesus entered. Meanwhile, Donkey lounged, tongue lolling. And I can write some stuff that's great, but I can't read it. Okay, Donkey lounged, tongue lolling in the dusty shade of the porch. Dogs, born without pockets, have little interest in trade and commerce. Stores were a human contrivance and beneath canine concern. Mr. and Mrs. Haney both seemed surprised, maybe a little uncomfortable, at Jesus's appearance. It had been this way ever since his father had passed in the farming accident. As far as Jesus could figure, those recently touched by unexpected death remind others just how vulnerable they are themselves. This makes for awkward encounters. Don't hold it against them, his mother had told him. They mean no ill will, son. Death touches us all. Their discomfort is rooted in their own fears. You keep your head up, my little man, and they will take comfort from you. They will see your strength and admire you for it. This will make your father proud. Jesus, said Mrs. Haney, It is so good to see you. How is your mother? Her smile didn't quite match the look in her eyes. Thank you, Mrs. Haney. My mother is well, and I'm sure she would have sent her greetings, but I did not tell her where I was going. The old woman's smile became less tentative. Ah, Christmas is the time for little secrets, isn't it? How can me and Mr. Haney help you? Jesus reached in and removed the money from his pocket. I'd like to buy a turkey, please. He couldn't help but smile. Buying a turkey for his mother's Christmas table felt like such a manly thing to do. The Haneys exchanged concerned glances. Jesus, I wish I had known, said Mr. Haney. All my turkeys are spoken for. I can only stock turkeys for those people who order them in advance. He took off his spectacles and used his apron to clean the lenses. Do you want me to put you down for turkey next year? It's never too early, you know. Mrs. Haney shot her husband a sharp look. Don't mind my husband, Jesus. But he's right about the turkeys, I'm afraid. They're all spoken for. In fact, most have already been picked up. Mr. Haney even sold the one I ordered for our own table. How about a nice holiday ham, Jesus? That's what we'll be eating for Christmas this year. Jesus tried to conceal his disappointment, but he felt it rise hot and red at his cheeks. Can I order a turkey now? I can come back for it tomorrow. Mr. Haney scoffed. Doesn't work like that, Jesus. There's probably not an unclaimed turkey to be had anywhere on the Llano at this late date. How about a chicken? Seeing as it's you and tomorrow's Christmas Eve, I'll give you a good price. You'll give him an excellent price, Jerry, Mrs. Haney growled. She turned to Jesus. You know, chickens aren't all that different from turkeys. They roast up nice, and Inez can even stuff it. I know it's not a real turkey, but we have an exceptionally plump roaster I'd be honored to give you as a gift. Jesus held back his tears. I guess I can make do with the chicken, Mrs. Haney, but I have to pay for it, if you don't mind. I cannot give my mother a gift of something I got for free. Mrs. Haney tilted her head, nodded. No, I guess you can't. When the transaction was complete, Mrs. Haney pulled Jesus into a tight hug. You are a wonderful young man, she said. You be sure to give Inez our best and tell her I'll be out to see her soon. I'd like to do another reading if I still have time.
Yeah, there's a few minutes, so definitely go ahead.
Okay. This, I wrote 3 stories for this book, and I consider them a trilogy because they're all, the main character is always a young boy. And so there's a theme going for me. And just as we saw Jesus, who lives in the Llano, and what he was dealing with, I wrote another story about a 9-year-old boy named Jojo who lives in New York City. His mother is a firefighter, and he's waiting for her to come home on Christmas, and she's late, and he's worried. So I go from the Llano to Manhattan. If you've spent any time in New York City, you know that wailing sirens make up most of the city's soundtrack. Oh, horn honkers contribute backup vocals during certain hours, but sirens always sing lead, especially for the folks who love and rely on the people who sail fearlessly into the turbulence of the siren's wake. Jojo stood at the window of his tiny bedroom, listening to a concerto of Christmas night silence. He'd learned to distinguish between the different arias sung by police, fire, ambulances, and other emergency vehicles. Often, though, they wailed in a confusing, cacophonous tandem. When they sang in close disharmony, he knew the situation was real bad for somebody, or maybe somebodies, maybe even for firefighters. Based on what he heard, Jojo determined there were no new emergencies in the vicinity of Engine Company 26, his mom's outfit. He tried to take comfort in that, but what of ongoing emergencies? The wailing, he'd learned, didn't stop just because the sirens no longer sang. Jojo wandered back to the kitchen, reopened the fridge door, and didn't know why. He wasn't hungry, far from it. He slammed the door, leaned against the counter. Why was he so drawn to that stupid turkey? And that's what I got for you guys. What do you
Thank
think?
you.
Y'all love it?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much, Lee. I feel like in addition to, I mean, I know you made that comment about writing, but maybe not reading, but I think you have a fantastic narration voice. So I think that was a great experience all around.
I thought about, I wished I could have done the audio book, but I
Mm,
did, but I did.
and
But
it
thank
fits
you.
your life. Of
Yeah,
course.
and another one. Yeah, next book.
Yeah, so at this time we do have time for our audience Q&A. So anyone in the Zoom, if you have a question for one or more of our authors, go ahead and type those in the chat and I'll make sure they get asked. We've already got a couple coming in, so I want to start with this question, which is for all three authors. Is there a primary message you would like readers to take away from your story? I'm thinking we could go in reading order. So, Jessie, do you want to start us off with this one?
I would love to. Primary message: you're stronger than you think you are.
It's amazing. Yeah, I think the best, some of the best messages can be boiled down just like that. So I think that's wonderful and a great takeaway that I think a lot of people could stand to hear more often. Cammy, what about you? What's a primary message you'd like readers to take away from your story?
Well, one of the messages that runs through the series is that there is strength in community, there is kindness in community, and we have to pull on those strengths to all get along and help each other in the world as much as we're able to.
Another great one. I mean, I think I'm not surprised by any means, but I think, yeah, these are great things to be taking away. And Lee, what about you? I know you've got multiple stories, but what's a primary
No,
message that was on your
okay,
mind?
but sure, they get all the good ones, and what's left for me to say? No, no. I, the truth is, I think life is just so darn interesting that anything that you put down on paper with any kind of love behind it is a wonderful thing. That's my theme is that big.
Yeah, I mean, again, I think that was great. I think you're selling yourself a little short with that. But yeah, no, I think these are all fantastic messages. We've got another question. This one is for Cami. Can you walk us through your creative process? Does the writing come first and then the illustrations, or does the artwork inspire the writing, or is it something else?
Well, this one came a little differently than a lot of the other stories I've written. This was actually a very vivid, intricate dream that I had at one time. It was in color and everything. And so I spent a lot of time after that on my morning walks thinking, how could I develop this into a story? Because my husband had encouraged me to do it. So I did draw on some things in my life to kind of fill in some of the pages, but most of the things that I came up with for the stories were in the dream.
Yeah, that nighttime dream from the author bio. I think a lot of us were so curious what happened, but I guess we saw that from the book itself. So I'm so glad it got put to paper, how many dreams kind of get forgotten before that point. So
Yes,
um
exactly.
yeah. This next question is for Lee. How did you and your co-authors put together the anthology? Did you have to be especially mindful about things like variety?
Um, I not me. I had I had stories I liked, and Terry, he came to me. He asked me if I wanted to participate, and I asked him, how many $1 million I would make, and so far that hasn't come to pass. But uh, no, we came together because we appreciate each other as writers, and we all wrote about Christmas from our own perspective. So no, there was no theme besides Christmas.
Well, I think
Was
that's a
did I answer?
fantastic.
Okay.
Yeah, that's
Hayla,
great.
is there time for me to comment on something, Hayla?
Sure, go ahead.
I just wanted to say that it is so awesome to be able to meet Lee. I reviewed some of his stories. I recognized both of them that he read, and I also reviewed some of Terry's stories, and I noticed that he had written some comments. So I was just so excited when I saw both of them. It's like, no way. So it's just so awesome.
Yeah, of course. I love that. It's kind of like feeling a little starstruck, right? When
Uh,
you
It
put a
is.
face to a name.
Yes.
Oh, well, Cammy, thank you so much. I didn't, I hadn't made a connection.
Yeah. Well, we got faces with names now. So that's so cool.
That's better. Yeah, I like it that way.
Absolutely. This next question is for Jessie. Your bio mentioned how much you've learned about human behavior from character development for writing. How do you develop compelling characters?
My characters come pretty much fully fleshed, but as I explore what they do and how they interact with others, then I learn things, and it's really a fun process but they really do usually come. Sometimes I have to go back and make some adjustments and things, but a lot of times they come, the character comes, and they kind of inform me of what um, and so that's why, as I go into um, them, I understand them more, and I understand others more and myself more.
Yeah, I
They
think
really
that's such a
become
good.
the characters really become your family, don't they? That's what happens with me.
Absolutely.
They're your family while you're writing the book, and it's like real life. It feels like real life.
Mm,
Yeah, I think
agree
that's
with
the biggest mark, right? When they feel like real people.
Exactly.
Well, my characters boss me around. That ain't fun.
As
They
the
tell
best
me what
characters
to do.
do.
Yeah.
Hmm.
I, I
Well,
just
we,
I just
oh, go
love
ahead.
I just love the way the terms that the way that Lee had, like answering the messages. The dog answered the messages, and I just want to say if you enjoyed what he read, you'll really enjoy the rest of the story. You got to do it. You got to get it because it's wonderful. And I just was in awe of his the way he put things together. It's just really neat. And I love Cammy's too. I mean, it's just such a playful story. And the
We just
illustration.
all rock tonight. That's what I'm getting from this.
That's one of the things that makes this so wonderful. You know, you can enter a contest and one person wins, but this just feels like a community. You know, as soon as I found out who was going to be reading with me, I got the books so I could, and it's wonderful. Oh, gives me goosebumps.
Oh, that's
Jessie,
wonderful.
thank
I'm
you
so
so
happy to
much.
hear that. Yeah. I'm really curious. I know this next question is for all three authors. What's next for you as writers, especially as you're developing this community with each other and thinking about your future stories? Cammy, do you want to start us off with this one?
Well, the series, The Holidays and Trees, has 7 books, and this is the 4th book. The next one I'll be working on in January. And so I have a few more of those to get off the press the next few years. And then I have kind of an adult version that I have put together that I'm going to try to do, if I'm not too worn out, at the end of the series that's about farming life, how I grew up, excerpts from other family members that have written things because they write too, and just kind of a collection of family stories to put together.
Absolutely. So lots of great things on the horizon. Lee, what about you? I'm especially excited to see an instrument enter the view.
Yeah, well, I'm going to become the new Bob Dylan. Okay. I no, I you know, I write because I just love to write. I'm gonna write, I'll probably write on my eyeballs when I'm dead.
As you should, as you should. No, I think it's kind of exciting to not know what's on the horizon until it really like hits you, right? So we'll
I,
just have to keep an eye out. We'll have to see what comes
well,
from you next.
oh, you'll be surprised. I got
What's the
something
most exciting?
planned.
And Jesse, what about you? What's next for you as a writer?
Um, there's so many things. I have written because, you know, I've lived a number of years, quite a few years. I've written a lot of first drafts. And so I'll be going into one that's kind of in the same world um, as the Starsha book. Um, and that's next, but I also have some really important family histories that need to be done. I can't claim authorship for them. The one by my mother and the one by my father, they wrote themselves about their life, and I feel just that's really important to get those out there in the world.
I agree. Yes.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think that's fantastic and honoring that history for sure. Well, I want to say at this point, thank you so much to all three of our authors for being here with us today and sharing their stories. To Jesse, Cammy, and Lee for just being generous with us on this event. And thank you, of course, to everybody in the audience for joining us and celebrating these authors alongside us. Don't forget, of course, that you can order Moon in the Day Sky, Holidays and Trees, Christmastide, and 12 New Stories of Christmas from the links in the chat, which I will put in there one more time so they're easily accessible. All three of these books are fantastic as gifts for the holidays. So definitely make sure that you pick those up sooner rather than later. And please also consider checking out atmospherepress.com to browse our new and forthcoming releases, sign up for our email newsletter, or submit a book manuscript of your own. Submit your work to books@atmospherepress.com and just let us know that you attended today's event. We'll look forward to hearing from you, but until then, that's it for tonight, so have a great rest of your week, everyone.
Thank you
Thank
very
you,
much. It
Ayla.
was nice to meet you all.
Nice to meet you as well.